Why, hello there. Howdy, even. It's been a minute. How are ya? How are the kids? The wife still dead? That's good, that's good. Listen, if you're new here, if YouTube just threw this up on your homepage, this is part 4 of a very disturbing series on the CIA Iceberg. It's just chocked full of wacky hijinks and human rights violations. It's pretty lit. It goes hard, humbly speaking. I'll link part 1 in the description, maybe throw up a card right here, but if you're lazy or don't want to negatively impact my audience retention, you can just start with this video here. You know, you're not gonna miss anything. It's all kooky, crazy goodness. You can always go back for the others later. You're already here. You're already right here. I got kind of sickly before filming this tier. It's part of why it took so darn long to come out and why I sound slightly annoying and nasally for the first entry or two. Don't worry about it. Okay, we're all gonna be fine. Everyone's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay, my babies, my little babies. I'd never hurt you. Well, physically, at least. I mean, I'm literally on the other side of a screen here. It's not like I could, it's not physically possible to, here. See, you good? Did that hurt? Was that an ouchie? Oh, my shit is crooked now. No, you're fine. See, you're gonna be fine. Psychologically, though, I'm not so sure. And speaking of psychological pain, let's just get on with it, shall we? 2002 Venezuelan coup. That rhymed, didn't it? Starting off the tier with another neon green theory, huh? It's a bold move there, bucko. So I think this entry, and not myself, okay, this is all post-ironic parody, of course, Mr. Government, please don't do stuff to my butt, is implying that the CIA created or supported the failed Venezuelan coup of 2002. And honestly, I don't know about all that, Chief, okay? Maybe I'm assuming too much about what it's implying, but I'll just lay out the facts here and let you come to your own conclusions, okay, little guy? Who's my little guy? You're doing so great, champ. So proud of you. As long as you've subscribed to the channel and liked all the videos to help them out in the algorithm, of course. If not, then I'm sorry, but you're dead to me, and I will drop you off at an orphanage. I don't care if you're one of my many illegitimate children or not, but you're an orphan now, okay? Like and subscribe, damn it. Hit that bell if you like having parents, bud. For legal purposes, I must say that was not a threat. After a series of socio-political nonsense unfolded in Venezuela, including labor strikes, riots, and 5 leaders of their nationalized oil industry blowing referee whistles at each other on national television, factions of the Venezuelan military, opposed to their socialist president Hugo Chavez, took the social unrest as an opportunity to hit a lick on Hugo's regime. They arrested Chavez and declared a prominent Venezuelan businessman, Pedro Carmona, to be the new legitimate leader of the country. A prominent businessman, huh? President of the country, you say? Not really doing too great of a job, I'm hearing? That doesn't sound familiar at all. Never heard of that kind of a situation occurring. Pedro immediately kind of went balls to the wall, undoing shit Hugo had set up in the country, such as declaring their entire constitution null and void, dissolving their Supreme Court, and converting a lot of popular socialist reforms Chavez had instituted in the country into loose diarrhea, presumably by force-feeding them Chipotle. As a response, the Venezuelan people surrounded the presidential palace and took over television stations in the country to publicly demand that Pedro step down and return power to Chavez, which he then did only 47 hours after the coup had begun. Pretty epic coup there, bud. You know, real nice coup you got yourself there. Really executed that one perfectly, didn't you? Now, seeing as this entire debacle was a steaming hot, poorly planned shit show bent on a prominent businessman immediately removing a South American government's socialist policies, it would make sense for you to assume that the CIA was involved, right? I mean, this sounds right up their alley, don't it? I mean, like it's like it is the alley. You know, it's not even right up it. This just sounds like it is the whole thing. It's the whole alley. And I am not saying that they weren't, okay? But I'm also not saying that they were. I do some great research on this channel, huh? We're really getting to the bottom of things over at Necessary Information. My name's Evan, by the way. I'm Evan from Necessary Information. Hi, nice to meet you. Just so you guys have something to actually call me in the comments. What I am saying, though, is that the CIA definitely knew that this coup was a thing that was going to happen well in advance, did absolutely nothing about it, and then lied to everyone after the fact. 2 separate CIA briefs from shortly before the coup show that the US knew this coup was going to happen, why it will happen, who will do it, and approximately when. And given that Hugo Chavez was a Castro-loving socialist, they were not particularly inclined to inform him of this imminent political butt-fucking. And when accused by the media of having advanced knowledge of the coup, the Bush administration quietly responded, "Nuh-uh," and little bitch says what? Now, whether the agency actually funded anything or armed anyone or just sat there eating popcorn while this entire garbage fire of a coup went down is up to interpretation, but what we can say for sure from this and countless other things at this point is that the CIA are dirty, stinky, rotten, unshowered, moldy fibbers. Toe fungus and lies. That's all they got. That and a bunch of heroin just lying around the place, being a tripping hazard.
I just cleaned up this mess. Can we keep it clean for 10 minutes?
Operation Chaos. Long before Edward Snowden blew some whistles and told everyone to cover up their webcam because the NSA uses them to stare at your balls while you sleep, the US had to resort to less digitally based methods to illegally spy on its own citizens. Nowadays, however, you never know what kind of nefarious cretins or giant international corporations are trying to take and sell your personal data or do any number of other nefarious nonsense to your privacy online. And that's why we should all be using today's amazing sponsor, Surfshark, which, if you don't already have, I promise you'll want after this, okay? So, for me, for Papa information, don't just skip through it like always, okay? I was genuinely surprised how dope this is. Surfshark is an intuitive VPN so easy to figure out that even an illiterate, subhuman, semi-sentient mass of flesh like myself can use it, which keeps you safe by being your virtual mask, encrypting everything you're doing online and hiding your location, so you can keep that one Russian dude on CSGO from swatting your house for the 4th time this week. You can connect to over 3,200 servers in 100 different countries, which means you can access content from places like Netflix that isn't available where you are, but would be if you were connected to a server in, say, England, for example. You know, if England was a place that actually existed. Securing your God-given right to online privacy and watching quote-unquote British Netflix is not all you're gonna get from Surfshark, though. You see, you may not know that I am actually incredibly cheap. Like to a fault. Like, I do not spend money on anything. And Surfshark is going to help me get the most out of the money that they themselves are paying me by helping me get around online price discrimination. So now I can save money on my flight to the only Target store in Flint, Michigan by changing my online location and getting the best deal. You can also share one account across unlimited devices, and they don't even care if you're actually the one using it. You know, they're just cool like that. So you can share your Surfshark subscription with your friends, your 2 moms, your 4 dads, that one dude at your gym who always vaguely smells of onions. Just not Derek. Not Derek. Don't share it with Derek. You know, technically you can. It is physically possible. It's not like a breach of terms or anything, but like, why would you do that? He's a terrible person, you know? I know you can hear me, Derek. Stop watching my ads, Derek. And this can save you some serious cash. I mean, you can already use Surfshark for the shockingly low price of $2.49 a month. But say you're living on some sort of off-the-grid commune situation, an alien-worshipping cult perhaps, well, you can get your closest 5 intergalactic buddies together and split one subscription, and now you're paying less than 50 cents a month to secure your online privacy. That is cheaper than dirt, literally. I mean, go to the store and tell me you can get a bag of topsoil for less than 50 cents. It's not happening. They even have a refer a friend program, so if you get one of your other interstellar amigos to sign up and stay for more than 30 days, you can get up to 2 years of VPN absolutely free. And to tell you how thorough these guys are, when you sign up for the service, Surfshark even checks the password you're trying to use to see if it's been in a data breach. How cool is that? I mean, you haven't even signed up for the service yet, and they're already telling you if that same password I know you've used for everything since you were 12 is compromised, Derek. Change your password, Derek. Seriously, you are so irresponsible and truly unloved. There are so many other cool, useful features to keep you safe and save you money online included with Surfshark that I literally do not have time to tell you about all of them here. So go check them out yourself and start surfing the net the right way by clicking the link in this video's description and entering coupon code INFORMATION to get an extra 3 months absolutely free. Seriously, use the code INFORMATION, alright? That's how they know I sent you, and if you don't, you miss an extra 3 months free. Okay, so click that link in the description after the video, or do it now and come back, or hey, just leave me running in the background while you get this amazing deal, why don't ya? A huge thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to talking about the CIA spying on people that Well, definitely weren't using Surfshark, I can tell you that. Back in the era of hash, hippies, and herpes, the CIA ran Operation Chaos, a covert domestic and foreign surveillance operation run between 1967 and 1974 under the presidency of Lyndon B. Johnson and later expanded upon by Dick Nixon. In particular, the project's stated goal was to discover any potential links between anti-war movements inside the country and foreign powers, such as an anti-Vietnam War group and the Soviet Union, for example, or between me and Djibouti. The project was eventually scrapped after Nixon went just a little overboard and upgraded from spying on hippies and Black Panthers to, Watergate. Dick got a little too big for his britches there. I mean, they at least said that they ended it publicly. I'm sure they were still doing something to spy on people. They probably just moved it from like the CIA to the NSA or something slimy like that. I'm always interested in the names of these things because they're usually something that sounds totally innocuous and benign, almost to like a suspicious level, like Operation Paperclip actually involving smuggling useful Nazis into the US for research after the war, or like Operation PB Fortune. It doesn't sound like a coup in Guatemala. It sounds like they're developing psychic peanut butter, But this one, they were just like, f it, dude. Name it Operation Chaos. Let's be badass for once. We've earned it with this one. I mean, the thing sounds like it was named by a husky 12-year-old with a flame decal on his binder and a temporary tattoo on his fat little bicep. Some of the operations that we've already discussed were either part of or later absorbed into Operation Chaos, such as HT Lingual, Projects Merrimack and Resistance, and something just called Project 2, which sounds to me like just a slightly different flavor of Project Merrimack. Some of the groups targeted by Operation Chaos include, but are not limited to, Students for a Democratic Society, the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, Women Striking for Peace, Ramparts Magazine, the Women's Liberation Movement, as well as the Israeli Embassy, for some reason, and various other Jewish groups within the US. They thought the Jews were up to something as well, I guess. Which just seems so cliche to me at this point, At least get creative, US government. Anti-Semitism is so 1942. It's been done. It's been done to death, no pun intended. It's played out. My favorite little factoid about this operation is the fact that the CIA purchased an entire garbage company just so they could use one of their trucks to steal Jewish garbage and then frantically look for clues in it like Jimmy in Better Call Saul. Jews really cannot have shit, can they? They can't even throw stuff away without somebody f***ing with them. It's just, oy vey. By the time the program was abolished, Operation Chaos had files on over 7,700 Americans and a computerized index of 300,000 citizens and around 1,000 different groups. So what kind of juicy, necessary information roll credits did the CIA obtain through these illegal, immoral wiretaps and the countless man-hours spent secretly surveying these Americans that were ironically paying for this entire operation with their own tax dollars? Well, to put it shortly, fucking nothing, not a thing. Richard Helms, the director of the CIA at the time, stated in 1967 that the CIA had uncovered, quote, no direct evidence of any contact between the most prominent peace movement leaders and any foreign embassies within the US or abroad, a sentiment which he repeated in 1969 and which remained true until the project imploded in 1974. So everyone, go check your smoke detector right now, okay? There's probably a camera in there. That's what that little red light is for, all right? I know because the guy in my walls told me. If there's not a camera in there, which is unlikely, you're going to want to go ahead and put a camera in there yourself to catch whatever shady government-controlled alien is inevitably going to try and put one in there themselves. It's a foolproof plan, really. Erkin Alpakin. So this one feels like more of a neon green entry to me, honestly. So disclaimer, everything in my videos for entertainment purposes only. It's all fake. It's a joke. I'm not real and neither are you.
We live in a society.
This has to do with the whole Uyghur situation going on in China, which I will be the first to admit that I'm underinformed about. But that's mainly because it feels to me that you can't really trust anything you see in that area. It feels like half of the shit out there about it is just fake Chinese propaganda that they pay John Cena and any generic white person with more than 1,000 followers to spew out, just like their radioactive sewage directly into the ocean.
冰淇淋，2个礼拜以后
速度与激情就两个礼拜以后，速度与激情就冰淇淋。
So Erkin Alpakin is maybe how you pronounce his name, is a German-based Uyghur who has been a longtime supporter of Uyghur rights and their separatist movement within China, and has spread those messages on establishments such as Radio Free Europe. He's also the president of the World Uyghur Congress, which, again, depending on who you ask, is either a non-violent and peaceful movement that opposes Chinese occupation of Uyghur territory, or a US-backed right-wing regime change terror network of religious extremists seeking the, quote, fall of China. So, honestly, I'm not touching this one. I'm not even touching it. I don't want to spread misinformation, and this topic is just chocked full of it. So, if you want to, go ahead and go in the comments and tell me what you think is going on. Be respectful, cite your sources, maybe, possibly. Don't spread misinformation, but other than that, just go off down there, dude. Just really get into it. Leave a couple of poop emojis even. You've earned it. UNITA, Angolan Civil War. The Angolan Civil War was kind of the African equivalent of Vietnam, except we didn't send any hippies there to die or get addicted to heroin. Well, to my knowledge. The conflict in Angola was a proxy war lasting from 1975 all the way until 2002. Although the US specifically kind of lost interest after the Soviet Union took a shit and collapsed, pulling their support in 1992. UNITA, or the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, was the US-backed anti-communist faction of the war, and were fighting against the Communist People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, or MPLA. UNITA was backed mainly by the US and South Africa, but was also aided by several other African countries, as well as Bulgaria, Egypt, France, Israel, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and, strangely enough, the People's Republic of China. The communist MPLA, on the other hand, was aided by a shit ton of countries, including Algeria, East Germany, Cape Verde, Czechoslovakia, the Congo, Guinea-Bissau, Morocco, the Mozambique, Nigeria, North Korea, Poland, Romania, Sao Tome and Principe, Somalia, the Soviet Union, Sudan, Tanzania, Libya, Yugoslavia, and, strangely enough, the People's Republic of China. Those flip-floppy bastards. Apparently they switched sides after them and Russia had a breakup and they wanted to make them jealous or something. The MPLA's main supporter in the war effort was Cuba, who actually sent in some of their own military troops to help aid in the struggle. And you already know the CIA's gotta do something when Cuba pulls up at the function. The reason UNITA is on this list is because the US and CIA fibbed it up hardcore once again, denying that they aided the South Africans at all, saying that Angola sent troops to Cuba, for some reason, instead of the other way around, and Reagan pulling another Iran-Contra by funding the Angolans illegally after Congress said that he couldn't and made it illegal in 1976.
Throughout the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan noticed a glaring problem with the United States. There was simply no drip.
He did this by strongly encouraging our allies in Angola, such as Israel, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa, to fund and arm UNITA in exchange for, funds and arms. Not like arms, guns and such. He basically forced these countries to act as geopolitical middlemen by sending them funding and arms and saying, hey, give those funding and arms to UNITA to obfuscate from the fact that I'm doing this. Maybe skim a little off the top while you're at it, Ronnie's got you. Ronnie's got your back. And in the end, again, just like Vietnam, the commies won anyway. 1985 Beirut car bombings. Here's a quote I came across during this research. In 1976, Gerald Ford became the first U.S. president to forbid political assassination in the wake of the Church Commission, issuing Executive Order 11905. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan strengthened the policy with Executive Order 12333, which decreed that, quote, no person employed by or acting on behalf of the United States government shall engage in or conspire to engage in assassination. This executive order remains in effect today. When I read that, I blinked twice, looked around me for the camera crew from Punk'd, checked my pulse, went to a psychiatrist, who did uncover a lot of issues, but they were mostly unrelated, talked to the guy in my walls, ran around in a circle on the ground like Zoidberg in Futurama, and then shit on the floor of a Target, because I could just not believe what I was reading. I mean, what did they do to Osama, What do you call that if not assassination? targeted oopsie daisy? I feel like I'm taking fucking crazy pills here. On March 8th, 1985, a car bomb exploded near the home of Syed Mohammed Hussein Fadlallah in a failed assassination attempt by a Lebanese counter-terror group that was trained and supported by... Hold on a second. Can you guess who it was? Hold on a second. The CIA! Finally got my gong money together, boys. Thanks to everybody supporting me on Patreon. They paid for that gong bit, if you're unaware. And you can support me too. Please do. Please do. Or I'll be blue. Link in the description. This car bomb happened to go off at the end of a Friday service at the nearby mosque, where a group of women and girls were attending. So they, unfortunately, ended up making up a majority of the 80 killed during the blast, along with a few of the actual target Fadlallah's bodyguards. But one man, who was perfectly fine, was Fadlallah, as he was not even there because he was attending service at a different mosque down the street. Pretty pro-level planning skills there, boys. Really showing them how to do an assassination, aren't you? The bomb destroyed 2 7-story apartment buildings, a movie theater, and the mosque, and the locals hung up a sign over all the wreckage that said, quote, "Made in USA." That's tough. That's ouch. Oof, that's a tough one right there. In spite of this very on-the-nose message, however, the CIA actually denies ordering or having any knowledge of the attack, despite supporting and training the group that did it, as that would go against the previously mentioned executive order banning assassinations that apparently exists. And that really makes sense right there, right? The CIA denying any involvement despite working so closely with the people that did it. You know, that tracks. Everything lines up real good, don't it? Nothing suspicious here. Operation Gideon, the 2020 Venezuelan coup attempt. Another neon green one here, okay? It's theory time once again, kids. And take this one with like a gallon of salt, okay? You'll see why later. And unlike pretty much everything else I'll be discussing, this operation happened incredibly recently, and there are ongoing legal battles about it currently. So for legal purposes, this is all incredibly alleged. This entry is for entertainment purposes only. It's basically fictional. This is all post-irony humor, and
Art is a lie, nothing is real.
I'm really having to do a lot of disclaimers on this one, huh? Nobody sue me, for the love of God, please. I'm so poor. I could not handle that financially, emotionally, physically, sexually. Just don't do it. Please support me on Patreon for when they sue me. You know they're gonna sue me. When Donald Trump put out a $15 million bounty on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in 2020, there were more than a few people with dollar signs in their eyes and what appeared to be a roll of quarters in their pants. And no one had more dollar signs in their eyes or a harder roll of quarters near his crotch than former member of U.S. Special Forces, leader of a mercenary group known as Silver Corp USA, and alleged Play-Doh eater Jordan Gordreau did when he attempted to collect on that bounty in May 2020. But why was any of this happening in the first place? So, in 2013, the former president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, died and was replaced by his vice president, Nicolas Maduro. And he's handled that situation just swimmingly, just Italian butthole hand kissingly. Shortly after being elected, the Venezuelan economy collapsed to the point that, according to journalist Andrina Baduel, its citizens went from having food, water, gasoline, internet, and electricity to, well, not having any of those things. Not exactly an ideal situation. This has led to a massive refugee crisis with more than 7 million Venezuelans fleeing the country after Maduro's election. Maduro has also been described as an autocrat and a dictator, has rewritten the country's constitution in order to stay in power, and has been accused by multiple agencies and countries of corruption and colluding with Latin American drug cartels to the point of basically running a narco state. So generally all around sounds like a chill fellow. He's keeping it crispy over there for sure. 7 out of 10 president. In 2018, Maduro won what many have called a sham election against his opponent Juan Guaido, who the US and 49 other countries recognize as the true leader of Venezuela after he and his party have repeatedly protested the results of the election and yelled fibber in the direction of Maduro. Not literally, but, figuratively yelled Fibber. Maduro, on the other hand, is recognized as the legitimate leader by only about 20 countries, leading to an interesting situation where the dude who isn't actually acting as president is recognized as the true leader by like 30 more countries than the dude who's the actual sitting president of the country. And all of this is what led the DEA and Donald Trump to put out that $15 million bounty for Maduro's capture and caused the immense hard-on to form in Guthrow's pants. After learning of the bounty on his head, Maduro responded by calling Donald Trump a, quote, racist cowboy and stating on live television, "Donald Trump, you are a miserable human being and you manage international relations like the New York mafia extortion artist you once were as a real estate boss." Donald Trump, who, as we all know, is a very level-headed and modest man who takes insults and mockery like this very well, reportedly reacted by asking his advisors why the U.S. couldn't, quote, just invade the country, and telling them that it would be, quote, cool to invade them. Well, someone else who definitely thought it would be cool to invade was formerly mentioned mercenary group leader and hard-on-haver Jordan Gudrow. Gudrow started planning this invasion, which he referred to as Operation Gideon, well before the bounty was even announced, and sought funding from both the U.S. government and the team of Maduro's presidential contester, Juan Guaido. After allegedly considering a proposal from another band of mercenaries known as the Frontier Services Group that would have cost them $500 million, Gudrow came to Guaidó's team with a plan that would have only cost $1.5 million up front and would be paid for later with more than $200 million taken from Venezuelan oil sales after Guaidó took power. The team ended up taking the cheaper deal, and dude, you really should have just paid the $500 million, dog. Planning a coup is not really the time to start thinking about fiscal responsibility, okay? It's not like a used car or your daughter's wedding. It's not something you should try and cheap out on. And you can definitely see where the lack of $498 million led to. To quote a Rolling Stones article on the operation, "The story of the failed coup is one of a plan so inept, it makes John F. Kennedy's Bay of Pigs fiasco look sophisticated." And, yeah, I would have to agree. I think this coup would make a toothless hobo sharding in a Costco look sophisticated. According to Rolling Stone, among the supplies brought on the operation were a high-end BB gun and a Kindle e-reader. Their training camps must have been misnamed because the combatants spent more of their time there watching movies and playing FIFA than actually training. Maduro discovered the plot basically as soon as the thought entered Guthrow's head. His camp was full of so many moles that you'd think it had skin cancer, and news of an oncoming invasion even played on Venezuelan television before the coup took place, which all caused the group of combatants agreeing to take part in the invasion to drop from 300 to 60. And after getting into a screaming match with a member of Guaidó's team working with Gudrow on this coup, the team reportedly, quote, considered the operation dead and cut funding after only giving Gudrow $50,000 to work with. But despite all of this, in a stroke of what must have been an actual stroke, Gudrow decided somehow to go ahead and move forward with this coup anyway. Honestly, I don't even feel comfortable calling this thing a coup. It's like calling Alex Jones a journalist.
I'm kind of retarded.
The coup was launched on May 3rd, 2020, and consisted of one inflatable boat carrying 14 men who were immediately intercepted upon landing in Venezuela, with 6 of the men being killed and the remaining 8 arrested. After this massive success, Gudrow went ahead with sending his second wave of men the next day, who somehow took even less time to be intercepted, getting caught and escorted to shore by a Venezuelan naval ship. And Maduro's government even released footage of the coup forces surrendering with their hands in the air before they even made it off the boat. So, what in the sugar-sprinkled fuck does the CIA have to do with this? Well, at least a few people close to the operation suspected that Gudrow had CIA ties, including former Navy SEAL Efraim Matos, who was in touch with one of the Venezuelan rebels involved in the coup. But, and I realize how ridiculous this statement sounds, okay? I still don't even know if I believe it. I mean, this must be the most radical claim that I will make in this entire series. But I think that this guy may just have been too incompetent for the CIA. I know, that is borderline impossible, but trust me, this dude's probably got almost as many brain cells as Jeff Bezos does hair follicles, okay? The CIA, along with pretty much everyone else on the planet, apparently, were well aware of Guthrow's plan long before it took place and warned him on numerous occasions not to go through with it. Presumably because they were still training their laser attack pigeon to take out Maduro during the Looney Tunes-esque operation that I'm sure they're cooking up themselves. So, honestly, this thing was a total and complete train wreck, and really, I think the only way that the CIA was involved was in repeatedly begging him not to do it. Unless the guy who made this iceberg knows something that I don't, and I really looked into this one looking for something, okay? So, if you know something that I don't, please drop that info down in the comments, okay? I'm sure it's necessary. Operation Merlin. When Operation Merlin was exposed to the public in 2006 with the release of the book State of War by James Risen, he described the operation as not only a complete failure, but, quote, one of the most reckless operations in the modern history of the CIA, and it has also been called one of the most spectacular CIA screw-ups that we know of. Which, like, there's some tough competition for that title there. Yeah, that is certainly saying a lot. But honestly, I mean, yeah, this one's pretty f***ing wacky. Operation Merlin was a secret CIA plot to disrupt Iran's nuclear program that went, well, you'll see how it went. The same Iranian nuclear program that the CIA was desperately trying to cockblock here was actually originally aided by the US in the 1950s under the Eisenhower administration with their Atoms for Peace program, which opened up and aided in nuclear research for countries and civilians who had no previous atomic experience. And sounds like a spectacular idea there. I bet that would never blow up in our face. No pun intended. In 1970, Iran then endorsed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was aimed at limiting all countries' nuclear programs to peaceful purposes only. No PvP allowed. But then there was this pesky Islamic revolution where the Shah we talked about back in the 1953 Iranian coup entry back in Tier 2, a Shah, dude. Late for my noose tying class, got his turn to get cooed out of power. So Iran then went from being a kingdom controlled by an American puppet to an anti-Western Islamic theocracy controlled by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Fun stuff. Real fun stuff. I bet the CIA thoroughly enjoyed that turn of events there. Iran then went on a brief 8-year side quest warring with Iraq until 1988, when they returned to their nuclear shenanigans, aided by all of those fun-time, happy-go-lucky countries, China, Pakistan, and Russia. At this point, Iran must have really needed some toilet paper, and there wasn't any around, so they just decided to wipe their ass with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty instead, and went back to straight up building nukes. Russia then supplied Iran with some of their top nuclear scientists to help speed up this process. The Americans then naturally started trying to f*** with this operation, and came up with the brilliant plan of designing flawed blueprints to give to the Iranians. The designs were for an essential component of a nuclear weapon called a fire set, and were designed to be incredibly flawed and never work in order to waste a negligible amount of the Iranians' time, I guess. Seems like a great master plan, guys. What a real long-term solution you got going here. To deliver these flawed plans, the CIA recruited a defected Russian nuclear scientist in 1996 and trained him on how to help the Iranians with their nuclear program. The Russian's real name was never officially used within the agency, with him only being identified as Merlin in all CIA documents, hence Operation Merlin. They then began paying Merlin $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year, which seems kind of low for the most important and crucial man in a secret CIA nuclear weapons operation. I mean, there are high school teachers that make more than that. Not, the vast majority of them, but they exist. They paid him to pose as an expert nuclear scientist trying to pawn off his plans to the highest bidder. But that bidder was always just meant to be Iran. He was selling to the Iraniest bidder. Iraniest? Iranianist? What are people from Iran called? Iranian, the Iranianist bidder. The CIA then spent actual calendar years designing these flawed blueprints while Merlin was busy stalling the Iranians via email, using his own real, legal, God-given name, I might add. And a smart move on his part, a very intellectual course of action there, isn't it? I mean, I don't understand why the CIA was so concerned with not using his real name in their official documents when this dude is just giving it out over email to every f***ing Iranian. Merlin was then finally shown these flawed blueprints in 1998 and took about 2 seconds to examine them and immediately identify that they were a total, glaringly obvious piece of shit. You see, the flaws in these plans were so obvious that he was able to detect them pretty much as soon as they entered his eye line, and after this very comforting moment, Merlin quickly became much more worried that he was about to get Iranianly butt-fucked as soon as any of Iran's actual scientists, or worse yet, the Russian nuclear experts sent there, received these comically shitty blueprints, immediately realized that something is criminally fishy, and turn their anger toward the only person that they know is connected to this operation, Merlin, who, again, has been using his real name with them this entire time. The guy had way too much faith in the CIA to not hand him an unpolished turd upon which his life relied on here. Merlin then reported back to the CIA that the Hotmail account he had been using to email the Iranians had been hacked, and whoever did so could now probably pinpoint his address.
My name is Walter Hartwell White. I live at 308 Negra Arroyo Lane, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87104.
Which, when you're dealing with a hostile Middle Eastern nuclear power, is generally something that you want to avoid. There's something very funny to me about this guy just using his real name on a standard, unprotected Hotmail account for this classified government operation. Funny and slightly terrifying at the same time. This whole situation caused Merlin to become even more paranoid than he already was, and in 2000, he threatened to quit the operation entirely and even walked out of a meeting with the CIA while they were planning his delivery of their cuckoo doo-doo blueprints to the Iranians in Vienna. The CIA then gently forced him into going along with the operation anyway, presumably an offer he couldn't refuse style, and handed him an envelope containing some new blueprints that they said were A-OK fake nuclear plan 2.0 that would definitely totally be undetectable this time, for sure, for real, and also told him to not open the seal on the plans or look at them in general under any circumstances. He then immediately opened the seal on the plans and looked at them in general as soon as he was alone, because he now had a very accurate amount of faith in the CIA's ability to not royally f*** up a crucial part of a major operation, which is, of course, zero. Kinda off topic, but you know, it's just occurring to me that the fact that CIA agents were just being randomly dosed with acid while actively working in their offices does explain a lot of what went down in the 60s. Yeah, man, you know, why haven't we tried to assassinate Castro with like a pure beam of energy empowered by the love in our souls, man? Jackson, you're a genius, and your face is melting. Want to go to Area 51? Yeah, man, let's go fuck some aliens. When Merlin took a look at these new and improved plans and saw that they were just as terrible, if not worse, than the ones he had already seen, he decided to include a handwritten note telling the Iranians that the plans had a flaw and that he personally would be able to identify it. Which, you know, only completely negated the entire purpose of the operation. He then, instead of personally delivering the plans to the Iranians' nuclear representative that he was supposed to meet at their Vienna embassy, he just dropped the plans in the embassy's mail slot like he was returning a VHS at Blockbuster. The CIA, unaware at the time of the letter that Merlin had chosen to include in the plans that would turn their operation into something resembling a burnt bowl of week-old cereal, then grilled Merlin about why in the he would just drop the plans in the embassy's mail slot, about which he lied and blamed on his own incompetence. You see, Merlin only had 3 days in Vienna, and he fabricated a little fib that the first day, he just straight up couldn't find the embassy, even though he was given directions and the address of the place. The second day, he did find it, but just didn't have the plans on him for some ungodly reason and decided to call the entire day an L. And the third day, he just showed up super late after the office had closed and had no choice than to slam it in their slot. And the CIA, empathetically understanding massive incompetence after decades of massive incompetence, bought this little story. The Iranians then got the plans, saw the letter stating the flaw, realized that something was super sus, and ceased all contact with Merlin, and by extension, the CIA. The CIA then kept the program going for 3 more years until giving up and officially declaring the operation a failure in 2003. It's hypothesized that instead of throwing a monkey wrench in the Iranians' nuclear program like they intended, the operation actually had the effect of speeding up their progress, since because they were made aware that these blueprints were flawed, something that they probably would have figured out on their own very quickly anyway because of just how shitty the blueprints were. They were able to compare these plans with other blueprints of theirs and actually fix the fire set that this flawed blueprint was describing and vastly improve their nukes. Classic CIA-W, just a real dub. By the way, I have never used ChatGPT for anything YouTube related, but I was struggling to find as much info on this one as I would like, so I wanted to see how good it was at summarizing sources and finding places for me to search for this information. The results were mid as hell, honestly, but then I decided to have a little bit of fun with it. I asked it to write me a funny narrative about Operation Merlin to see how I stack up against a computer, and it proceeded to write me 3 full goddamn screenplays about it, each more terrible than the last, completely with, fully fleshed out fictional characters and time of day, interior, exterior headers and everything. This was way too funny for me to not do something with, but this entry is already way too long. So I've decided to include it on my second channel, which is called Necessary Nonsense. I'll have the link in the description to it, and it's also on my channels page. There's no videos over there yet, but go ahead and subscribe to see when this thing comes out, which will probably not be soon. Okay, I'm tits deep in work over here, CIA shit and whatnot, but check it out, subscribe, check it out. You know, maybe your kids or grandchildren can enjoy it after it comes out during the nuclear holocaust of 2032 or some shit. Palantir Technologies. Palantir Technologies is a data analytics company that appears to operate off of technology created for a Bond villain.
Hi, I'm Dr. Evil. For this speech tip, shit inside your mouth.
And to be fair, their 2 main clients are the US government and Wall Street. So, not too far off there. Founded in 2003 by PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel, Palantir was named after the Seeing Stones in Lord of the Rings. So, lots of sex going on in this man's life, I'm sure. The initial response Palantir received from investors was so strong that the chairman of the first group they went to for acquiring capital doodled through their entire meeting, and the second lectured them about their company's inevitable failure. After these 2 groups declined to invest, shat on their dreams, and told them to go die in a hole because their idea was so unbelievably stupid and would never work, they then went to the CIA, who proceeded to give them $2 million. A real underdog story there, right? The company has developed many technologies, ranging from ones used in 2009 to uncover something called GhostNet and ShadowNet, 2 Chinese operations spying on nearly 1,300 computers in 103 countries, including the Dalai Lama's office, a NATO computer, and various national embassies, all the way to developing tech that allows big banks to spy on their employees through their cell phones. So, like I said, quite the range for these guys, at least ethically speaking. They're also involved in technology responsible for predictive policing, basically the real-world equivalent of the Minority Report, which has been accused, of course, of racial discrimination. I guess they really took the term Minority Report seriously, if you know what I mean. Do you get what I mean? Because they're not white, because they're minorities. Palantir has also found itself in numerous other controversies, including, but not limited to, being accused in multiple instances of fraud, conspiracy, copyright infringement, spreading disinformation, disrupting Glenn Greenwald's support for WikiLeaks, stealing data from Facebook, which is kind of funny. It's like stealing McDonald's from the Hamburglar. Deception, obstruction of justice, facilitating deportations through their work with ICE, including targeting and deporting the parents of undocumented migrant children, and working on technology that will produce weaponized drones which operate fully on AI with no human input required. So basically they're accused of being lying racist thieves, converting immigrants into orphans, and literally developing Skynet. Sounds like a pretty laid-back company. I really don't know what all the fuss is about. 1966 Ghanaian coup. Francis Kwame Nkrumah was the first democratically elected leader of Ghana, founder of an influential Pan-African group, and winner of the Lenin Peace Prize given to him by the Soviet Union in 1962. Black man in the 60s, first democratically elected leader of a third world country, won an international award named after a leading communist revolutionary bestowed upon him by the Soviet Union. I have no idea where this is going. Kwame was overthrown in a CIA-sponsored coup in 1966. Oh, that makes sense, actually. Yeah, that math adds up Real good. I really should have seen that coming. The coup proceeded without the permission of a group that must not have been aware of its own existence, known as the 303 Committee, which was in charge of monitoring and approving covert CIA activities. The committee had actually already specifically denied a prior CIA request to plot the coup, as well as a request for something I can only describe as state-sponsored vaudeville terror. Okay, so this is what the CIA actually requested a high-level interagency oversight committee for permission to do. Okay, this is the legitimate plan that they put forward. The CIA station chief in Ghana requested the deployment of a small squad of paramilitary experts from the agency's Special Operations Group who were to, and I am in no way kidding, dress up in blackface, break into Ghana's Chinese embassy during the coup, kill everyone inside, steal as much as they can from the embassy's code room, and then burn down the entire building to hide the evidence. That was a real request that a real human being made for the CIA to be able to do. Then, as a New York Times article on the subject puts it, quote, "After some hesitation, high-level CIA officials in Washington decided against this operation." You gotta love the hesitation there. All right, gentlemen, so today's decision, should we or should we not allow CIA spec ops to dress up in blackface, raid a Chinese embassy, kill all the civilians inside, and then destroy the evidence? Huh. Wow, shit. Well, they are communists. You make a good point there, Richard. You make a good point. Let me hesitate on this a bit. Much of the information about CIA ties to this coup comes from the work of John Stockwell in his book In Search of Enemies. In this book, he writes that although higher-ups actively told the CIA not to oust Kwame, the agents stationed in Ghana were still told to maintain close ties with the military opposition, just in case they decided to start a coup all on their own, with absolutely no sway from the CIA agents that wanted them to start a coup, maintaining close ties with them that would entirely be their own decision. Completely. For sure. On God. The CIA kept such close ties with them, in fact, that the agency was able to coordinate the recovery of some classified Soviet military equipment as the coup took place, including a lighter that also functioned as a camera, which were then returned to CIA headquarters. But, of course, the CIA, they didn't have anything to do with that, right? I mean, it's not like they would literally have to know a coup was about to take place in order to coordinate the recovery of these items. You know, that's poppycock. Absolute balderdash. Is it funnier to bleep the poppycock or leave it in? Always trying to get creative with my censorship over here, as YouTube demonetizes all of these videos. So, you know. Suck my poppycock. Please support me on Patreon, link in the description, and thank you to everyone doing so. You're keeping me fed and my kneecaps unbroken by the multiple loan sharks that know my home address. In addition, before the coup kicked off, the CIA station chief in Ghana proposed to headquarters, in a shockingly unheard of turn of events, that a squad be on hand at the moment the coup started to do something that nobody had ever considered previously, just a completely novel idea. Storm the Chinese embassy, kill everybody inside, steal all of their classified records, and then blow up the building. They really had a hard-on for blowing up the Chinese embassy for some reason. At least the plan didn't rely on, blackface this time. Allegedly. Although the CIA officially denied involvement until much later, Stockwell writes that inside the agency, the Ghana agents were celebrated and given full credit for the coup, although this was not reflected in any official written records. And after all that, Ghana had a whole new government who dis situation once again, and everybody lived happily. Well, you get the bit at this point. It sucked. It always sucks, except possibly with Manuel Noriega. That one actually seemed all right. El Salvador Death Squads. Wow, this one sounds pleasant. Again, some very monetizable content here for sure. Patreon, please God. Also, look at this neat little pic I found of Ronnie Boy repping the capitalist Central American propaganda drip. It has absolutely no relation, but how could I not show it? Look at this little cutie pie. He could trickle down on me any day of the week. I'm fully kidding. He's the worst and I hate him. Check out my merch instead at necessarydrip.com. It's some propaganda you can actually get behind. It's also in a little merch bar under this video or in the store section on my channel page. Thanks so much. Thank you very much. All right, enough shameless plugs to fund my future hair plugs. Let's get her moving. From the 1930s until the end of the Salvadorian Civil War, which started in 1979, El Salvador was run by a series of military dictatorships backed and supported by the good old US of A. The Soviet Union and Cuba then started backing a resistance group of left-wing guerrillas known as the Farabunda Marti National Liberation Front, or FMLN, and ran a covert program that trained and supplied the rebels with 800 tons of weaponry. It's almost as heavy as your mother. I found a photo of some of these FMLN members, and, bro, what is going on with this dude's head, man? Is that like some kind of optical illusion or something? Is that cranial gigantism? What is going on here? Even the dude next to him seems to think something's up. He's looking at him like, you good, bro? Can your neck hold that thing up? You need some help with that thing? Shortly after this leftist guerrilla force was formed, Ronald Reagan came into office in the US, and I think you already know where Ronnie Boy was going to take this one. Reagan and the CIA started supporting far-right counterinsurgency groups within the country, which eventually came to be known as the El Salvador Death Squads. Which, why does it always have to be far-right paramilitary groups that we're supporting? You know, I get that we're fighting the communists and all, but couldn't we just once support some far-left revolutionary guerrillas? You know, really throw the Soviets a curveball? I mean, what are they gonna do? Fight them? You know, they're really gonna go topple a left-wing revolution? I don't think so, bro Holio. It, man. If you can't beat them off. That's what Mother always said. The US-backed death squads did fight the FMLN, but according to one article, also, quote, operated on their own at times and controlled the civilian populace through brutal violence, no matter the cost or human atrocities they committed. During the Civil War that lasted nearly 2 decades, an estimated 75,000 civilians were killed by these forces. And in response to these awful atrocities committed against innocent civilians, we sent them $4 billion. And again, that is in olden days money, okay? It's even more now. That is a fat sack of change right there. One of the leaders of these death squads, named Roberto de Abuason, single-handedly murdered thousands and gained the nickname Blowtorch Bob for his preferred method of torture. And I'll just let you guess how he did that, what he used for that. It rhymes with blowtorch. It was a blowtorch, the Tor browser. This is another neon green entry, so encrypt your browser and delete your search history, because we're getting theoretical. Maybe even activate the Surfshark VPN. I'm sure you got that amazing deal on earlier by using coupon code information at checkout, right? Right, you did that right. The Onion Router, or Tor, is the main method people use to access the dark web, which, as I'm sure most of you know, is an excellent place to definitely not buy drugs, or a very long list of other shady products and services. It works in ways that you think I would be autistic enough to understand, but unfortunately, my autism is a completely different flavor that causes me to research the CIA for like 6 months, and then present it in a black button-up and beanie in front of a black sheet, which are all completely caked in cat hair. And also scream at car horns for overstimulating me. Also, when I cut my nails, I can't touch shit for like 12 hours afterward, or else I just feel like I'm gonna die. Is that relatable to anybody? Also, like when I see a good hunk of meat at the store, I have to slap it. I need to slap it, or again, I feel like I will die. I'm too poor to pay for therapy. And too poor to treat the sleep apnea that I am completely sure I have, and it's probably why I'm going bald. Just to get the test is like $1,000, dude, and you gotta get the machine, pay for all the appointments. It's ridiculous. I have insurance. I still can't pay for it. I hate the American healthcare system. It's god-awful. We live in a society with whatever techno-gnome internet magic it uses to accomplish this. Tor, from my understanding, makes it far more difficult for any person, corporation, or shady crack-slinging intelligence agency to track your online activity by sprinkling some pixie dust or some shit on your IP address to make it f*** off and hide in a ditch for a while you're using it. Now, I assume the theory is that the CIA single-handedly created Tor to use for their own nefarious purposes, which, according to the official evidence, is not entirely true. But also kind of is. I'll explain. So, officially, the core principle behind Tor was in fact invented by the US government in the mid-90s, by the United States Naval Research Laboratory to be more specific.
I'm the greatest captain of the Queen's Navy.
And you're also a world-class poof.
I assume they needed a more encrypted way to view their totally straight pornog, given that naval men are so notoriously heterosexual and all.
Well, despite your point of view, I can thrill a girl or two. But I'd rather get it on with you.
The principle of onion routing, which the Navy developed, was named onion routing because it stinks and makes you cry, similar to an onion. And also, I guess, because it uses layers of encryption to hide your IP, just like the layers of an onion, but mostly because it stinks and makes you cry, okay? That is a credible fact right there, allegedly. I don't think I know how allegedly works. Can you just throw that into any statement and cover your ass, legally speaking? Like, for instance, could I just be like, Donald Trump absolutely steals the blood of 12-year-old boys for Alex Jones to dump on Hillary Clinton in a Teen Choice Awards goo dunk / ice bucket challenge fetish fashion? Allegedly. Is that fine? Can I do that? Who's alleging it? Am I alleging it? Well, I guess I did just do that. I need to get on Tor immediately. At its conception, the technology behind Tor was created by the Navy to protect American intelligence communication online. And you know who's a pretty damn big part of American intelligence? Give me a second. Give me one moment. The CIA! Getting my money's worth out of that gong. Kind of a misnomer there, calling them American intelligence, since they're so dumb and stinky. I'm sure they still do intelligent things every once in a while by some fluke of fate as well, Even a broken clock strikes your cock once a day, or whatever the expression is. I don't know, I never saw the movie. So, the CIA is confirmed connected to Tor, given that Tor uses onion routing, and onion routing was made specifically for the CIA and other US intelligence agencies. But there's also the neat little fact that the CIA has its own Onion website on the Tor network. But what could the agency possibly be doing with this website hidden deep within the dark web? I mean, unspeakable things, I'm sure. Well, I had to do a lot of digging and so much research, so much investigative journalism to find this out. But I did, okay? Here's the facts. It's just their normal website, but on Tor. Or so they want you to think. No, but it is, I'm pretty sure. The CIA set up their own Onion site in 2019 with the tagline for the project, which was apparently written by Shrek, being, quote, "Onions have layers, and so do we." That's their Hollywood influence acting up again, isn't it? Not even our ogres are safe from their supple touch. And the CIA's website is it's kind of a fever dream. There's several things you can do on there. You can apply for a job if you're interested in the ever-promising career field of designated leg breaker, certified waterboarding expert. You can virtually visit the CIA Museum, which is just a collection of weird shit they keep inside their headquarters in Langley, which, only CIA people are allowed to physically see since, it's in the middle of their fucking headquarters. They do the CIA does the next best thing and puts some pics of whatever stuff they actually allow us to see onto their website, keeping the bubblegum machine full of crack and the alien peni collection, obviously closed off to the public. And you can even have some fun on a thing that exists. I'm serious, called the CIA Kid Zone. Yes, that is a real thing on there. It's actually kind of lit, I'm not gonna cap. They changed the name from the CIA Kid Zone just to Spy Kids at some point. I guess because they bought the rights or threatened Robert Rodriguez's family until he gave up the trademark or something, allegedly. I'm gonna keep calling it the Kid Zone though, because I like that it makes it sound like the CIA has like a ball pit and a claw machine full of AK-47s in the corner of their waiting room. The CIA's Kid Zone has all kinds of fun and engaging ways to brainwash the next generation, including branding the job as some kind of endless James Bond mission full of, quote, daredevils, robot battles, and spy dogs, which I will give it up to him, is a very fun way of saying murderers, AI-powered death drones, and canine attack dogs. Holy shit. Why did it take me this long to figure out that a canine unit is a canine unit? Like dogs are canines, and the letter K and the number 9. Am I the only one too stupid to have not figured this out at this point? They even have some fun CIA-based games on there, such as the indie hits Stab the Commie and Help Reagan Smuggle Cocaine, in parentheses, to help fund South American death squads. I'm just kidding. They're mostly like code-breaking puzzles and shit, but that would be so dope. That would be so dope, right? The main reason they put this site on Tor is so that they can keep the anonymous tips that constantly get sent to their website untraceable from anywhere in the world. So if you know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who can make Putin take a little tumble down a long flight of stairs, you can now hit the CIA up with that information on that private line. So did the CIA single-handedly create Tor? Probably not. Do they use Tor? Absolutely yes. Are they creating a robot army capable of destroying mankind through kid-centric puzzle games you must solve to survive? It's possible. 1963 Iraqi coup. Before 1958, the US was decent enough friends with the Iraqi monarchy until July 14th of that year, when the Iraq devs decide to launch a Revolution DLC that turned the place into what America fears most, a representative Middle Eastern democracy.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Besides communism, obviously. They obviously fear communism more, but we'll get to that too, okay? Sit tight, buddy. The new Iraqi Republic was led by a man named Abdal Karim Kazim, who the US was not a huge fan of since he had some members of the Iraqi Communist Party in his administration. A cardinal sin in the eyes of the holy CIA, of course. Kazim actually pulled a real big brain juke out with that one, though, as, unlike most of the fine fellas we've discussed so far on this iceberg, he must have better understood the true scope of buttfuckery that the CIA was capable of inflicting upon him if they deemed him to be commie scum. So, he promptly pulled all of the Iraqi Communist Party members from his administration and publicly shat on communism in general to the Iraqi people. And for once in this series, I'm saying this unsarcastically, smart move. A big thumbs up from the CIA on that one, I'm sure. And not their normal standard thumbs up, which is, of course, the universal sign in their office of, yes, go ahead and overthrow their government, or, I just slipped the acid in Steven's coffee, go ahead and get the Jiffy Pop ready. They did, however, still have an issue with one particular unidentified colonel in the Iraqi military, who, at the time, they believed to be, quote, promoting Soviet bloc interests in Iraq. That's, you can't do that. I don't think they like when you do that very much. To deal with this, the CIA's Near East Division Chief, James H. Critchfield, created the very inconspicuously titled Health Alteration Committee and proposed a special operation to incapacitate the colonel, who they suspected of getting freaky with the Ruskies. Their plan was to send the colonel a handkerchief laced with poison from an unidentified Asian country. And the, Health Alteration Committee? Probably the best term I've heard so far. That one's definitely a gem. No, we're not gonna poison the guy, you know? We're just gonna alter his health a little bit, you know? Specifically in the direction of the being poisoned end of the medical spectrum. Around this same time, a young Saddam Hussein, a member of an Iraqi political party that I assume takes very good care of their personal hygiene, the Ba'athist Party, actually tried to assassinate Qasim but failed and was then exiled from the country. And that's the last time anyone heard of that fella, who never did anything of significance ever again. Can YouTube say I'm spreading misinformation for that joke? I'm joking, YouTube, okay? I feel like I have to put a fucking disclaimer in front of every third terrible bit in this iceberg. Not joking about the failed assassination, just the fact that nobody ever saw him again. You get it. You're an actual human as opposed to a YouTube-employed robot. Well, probably. Unless you are, in which case, 0011001, am I right? Some robot humor right there. I got the robots in the audience fucking dying on that one. Pretty niche demographic. By mid-1962, Qasim, while still not engaged in any communist bootlickery, had started to get up to some other fun activities that the CIA typically does not leave people unassassinated for doing, such as revoking 99.5% of the British and American-owned Iraq Petroleum Company's concessionary holdings, or, in other words, with our oil. I mean, we said we got mad at his threats to invade Kuwait, but, like, again, you gotta say something other than we want to kill him to take their oil, you know? You gotta pull something out of your ass. I mean, come on, you seriously think we gave a about Kuwait? You think America gave one single that he was going to invade a separate Middle Eastern country? It was the oil. Because of this, President Kennedy ordered the CIA to make preparations for a coup to gently pull Qasem kicking and screaming out of power, and a year later, in 1963, there just so happened to be a Ba'athist coup that did exactly that, presumably utilizing some weaponized soap and hair care products. After the Ba'athists scrubbed Qasem and his political associate to death, they then, in a very classy move, proceeded to exhibit their bodies on state television in a, quote, gruesome 5-minute film called The End of the Criminals, which aired immediately following prayers and a Felix the Cat cartoon. That sounds more like Itchy and Scratchy to me personally. Now, officially, the CIA has denied involvement in this coup, despite the documented fact that they were planning on, starting it in 1962. Believe it or not, though, some people do disagree with this official denial, however. No idea why. This seems like a very, very airtight story here. They must all be America-hating, square car-loving commies. The former U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia, James Atkins, who worked in the Baghdad embassy's political section from 1961 to 1964, claimed that he personally witnessed CIA officials colluding with Ba'ath Party members and has said, quote, "The 1963 Ba'athist revolution was, of course, supported by the U.S., with money and equipment as well. I don't think the equipment was terribly important, but the money was to the Ba'ath Party leaders who took over the revolution. It wasn't talked about openly that we were behind it, but an awful lot of people knew." In addition, the Secretary General of the Ba'ath Party at the time, Ali Salah al-Sadi, told a journalist that the Ba'ath Party in Iraq, quote, "first came to power on a CIA train." In this case, that is phrased as a good thing, but I would assume that you generally do not want to be on a CIA train. That sounds like a terrible time, and I do not think it would involve Tom Hanks taking tickets.
And now a government train is requesting permission to land here.
The Ba'athist government that followed lasted for a whopping 4 months before the group crumbled following a disagreement around unifying with Syria and their National Guard engaging in just a tad bit of some massive human rights atrocities. Some parts of the American government initially downplayed these atrocities, with one U.S. official attributing the reports of their cruelty and fanaticism to what he called the well-known Arab tendency to exaggerate, until it became very clear to everyone that these guys were brutal fucking monsters toward their own people, and that same official backpedaled harder than Lance Armstrong passing some steroids lying in the street, instead calling the atrocities, quote, "some of the most terrible scenes of violence hitherto experienced in the post-war Middle East." But who really knows? We could just chalk that up to the well-known white man's tendency to exaggerate. That's a bit. They were bad, those atrocity committers, the National Guard. I'm not going to get into it, but it was not a good time. The Phoenix Program. Speaking of a bad time, the CIA's Phoenix Program was a counterinsurgency force created during the Vietnam War that critics have described as a, quote, civilian assassination program. But before we toss that shit salad, though, let me just give you an incredibly oversimplified background on the Vietnam War for some necessary context. So when Vietnam initially gained independence from its colonial overlords, it was separated, kind of like Korea, into North Vietnam and South Vietnam. And I don't know what it is about the North always being communist, but hey, the North was communist. They took some notes from North Korea's book there, I guess. Clearly they're doing fantastic, so definitely a good plan to follow there.
Excuse me.
Did you just shart?
No, I did. It was that camera guy. It wasn't me.
The Soviets and Chinese were aligned with the communist government of North Vietnam, and the US and other Western powers were aligned with the Saigon government in the South. A paramilitary group of left-wing guerrillas with the goal of spreading communism into South Vietnam from the North was formed and was known as the National Front for the Liberation of Vietnam, or much more commonly as the Viet Cong. This ain't no Donkey Kong, okay? It's the Viet Cong. If you've ever wondered who the Charlie is that your dead-eyed uncle always mutters about being in the trees while he's cleaning his gun at the family potluck, Yeah, that's these guys. Yes, they were all named Charlie, okay? Every single one of them. I get it doesn't sound like a very Vietnamese name, but don't ask me why, okay? I'll start having flashbacks again, and next thing you know, another orphanage is on fire, and I'm naked in another alley with more charred orphan soot on my hands and groin. The Viet Cong were some real rascally fellas, and despite being vastly outmatched militarily by the Americans in the South, they managed to use their home turf advantage to ambush platoons, set deadly booby traps.
If you are a boob, you will be trapped.
Which included deep holes covered with brush that soldiers would then fall into and be impaled on sharpened spikes that were often smeared in feces to cause infections, and they even had complex tunnel systems underground, complete with makeshift hospitals, kitchens, armories, sleeping and living quarters, and, of course, many more varieties of deadly booby traps to catch any soldiers that might be trying to sneak their way up in there, which was f***ing terrifying to try and do as an American soldier, by the way. I mean, it's just a endless series of completely dark tunnels that you don't understand, full of poisonous snakes and, like, traps that make you drown and landmines that explode. I mean, even the Viet Cong were getting killed by their own booby traps. That's how fucking well protected they made these things. It was insane. The Viet Cong even somehow managed to get an entire American-made M48 tank down into one of these tunnels, which they used as a command post with the batteries, lights, and radio still fully functional. Which, you can say whatever you want about these guys, okay? No matter how you feel about them, that is undeniably badass, okay? Tank in a hole. Absolute mad lads. One of the most terrifying things the Viet Cong set up to get an edge on American soldiers, though, besides the poop-covered death spikes that you could just fall into at any moment, were their hidden firing posts, which consisted of little chambers dug out either right under the surface or in cliff faces, where the Viet Cong could pick off American soldiers through a tiny little slit just big enough to get your gun out and see what you were shooting at. So basically, if you were an American soldier, you'd see all your friends getting shot, you'd see the muzzle flash so you know where it's coming from, but there's pretty much literally nothing you can do about it other than run, because you're never gonna shoot the dude that's firing at you out of like a 6-inch hole in the wall.
These Viet Cong are elusive. You can't see them. All you can do is hear the bullets as they come at you.
Terrifying stuff, especially considering that more than 2 million Americans stuck in that shitty f***ing war were drafted against their will and didn't even sign up to be there. One day you're just smoking acid and dropping weed at Woodstock. The next day you turn 18, Uncle Sam throws your ass in a jungle, and now you're getting impaled on shit spikes or covered in snakes in a pitch black hole full of hundreds of dudes named Charlie that all want to rip out your prostate and feed it back to you. Had to do it though, you know. What were we gonna do? Just let a random country on the other side of the planet make its own decisions on how to govern itself? That would be insane. We're Americans, idiot. Obviously we had to send 2 million young men to go eat their own prostates and die in a jungle. They were communists, man. If we didn't do it, their cars might still be square to this day. Is that really a world you want to live in? Is it? So, finally talking about the actual topic of the century now, in addition to the paramilitary wing of the Viet Cong, there was also a non-militant political wing in the South known as the Viet Cong Civilian Infrastructure, or VCI. Nothing wrong with this, but if you're not watching and just listening to this derrick, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. But I love that everyone in this photo is so clearly, crushingly depressed, except for this one girl in the back who's just saying cheese for the camera. Like, literally everyone else looks like their dog just got hit by a cement truck, and this girl thinks she's in a f***ing toothpaste commercial right now. The Viet Cong Civilian Infrastructure, as the name implies, was made up of civilians aligned with the cause of the Viet Cong who would set up these things called shadow governments throughout South Vietnam. Basically, they go into small villages and rural areas where the Saigon government and Americans weren't paying as much attention to, and replace their local Saigon-aligned leaders with VC communists, and then basically turn the village into a Viet Cong outpost. They would achieve this either through some good old-fashioned communist convincing to turn leaders to their side, or some good old-fashioned kidnapping or murder of the leaders and their families if they refused to accept Lenin into their hearts as their true lord and savior. And remember the Phoenix program? The title of the century that I haven't talked about in like 5 minutes? Well, here's where that comes in. The program was set up by the CIA specifically to go against this civilian arm of the VCI, and that's where this whole perception of it being a civilian assassination program comes from. To quote journalist Douglas Valentine, author of the book The CIA as Organized Crime, based by the way. Based-ass title, goddamn. And a pivotal source of information on this topic, central to Phoenix is the fact that it targeted civilians, not soldiers. And they would do this through a number of fun, flowery methods that definitely, totally weren't war crimes or anything. I mean, who told you that? You know, where does he live? What's his social security number? How stabbable is his midsection? The program had two main goals: the targeted killing of non-militant communists, otherwise known as assassinating civilians, and extracting information from these civilians through advanced interrogation, which, as I'm sure your spidey senses allow you to remember, is literally just straight up torture. On the topic of the targeted killings, I will quote Lieutenant Vincent Akamoto, a former intelligence liaison officer for the Phoenix program. The problem was, how do you find the people on the blacklist? It's not like you had their address and telephone number. The normal procedure would be to go into a village and just grab someone and say, "Where's Nguyen so-and-so?" Half the time, the people were so afraid they wouldn't say anything. Then a Phoenix team would take the informant, put a sandbag over his head, poke out 2 holes so he can see, put Como wire around his neck like a long leash, and walk him through the village and say, "When we go by Nguyen's house, scratch your head." Then that night, Phoenix would come back, knock on the door, say "April Fool's, motherfucker," and whoever answered the door would get wasted. As far as they were concerned, whoever answered was a communist, including family members. Sometimes they'd come back to camp with ears to prove that they killed people. Sounds like a pretty precise operation they're running here. And unlike those poor souls whose body parts were taken back as trophies, I hear it gets worse, because they didn't have ears to like hear what you get it. And that's because I haven't even gotten to the torture yet. So again, viewer discretion, it is so advised. It is so incredibly advised right now, okay? Don't be eating. Don't operate a motor vehicle. Consult your physician before continuing, okay? Based on reports from Douglas Valentine, methods of torture used at the Phoenix interrogation centers included waterboarding, beating with rubber hoses and whips, the R-word, gang R-word using eels, snakes, or other hard objects, R-word followed by murder, something they called the Bell telephone hour, where they would deliver an electrical shock by attaching wires to the genitals or other sensitive parts of the body, like the tongue, something they called the airplane, in which a prisoner's arms were tied behind their back and the rope was looped over a hook on the ceiling, suspending the prisoner in midair, after which he or she was beaten, and the use of police dogs to maul prisoners. And a military intelligence officer named K. Barton Oswald reported that he witnessed, quote, the use of the insertion of a 6-inch dowel into the canal of one of my detainees' ears and the tapping through the brain until dead. The starvation to death in a cage of a Vietnamese woman who was suspected of being part of the local political education cadre in one of the local villages, and the use of electric gear such as sealed telephones attached to both the women's vaginas and men's testicles to shock them into submission. And, I'm pretty shocked by this too. In the program's peak years from 1968 to 1972, Phoenix's numbers that they were willing to officially put on the books say that they neutralized, meaning imprisoned, persuaded to defect, or killed close to 82,000 people suspected of Viet Cong membership, 26,000 of which were killed, and the official numbers from the South Vietnamese forces estimated the number killed to be closer to 41,000. And I'm not even going to put a joke segue here like usual. I'm just going to go take like a cold shower and think about puppies or something for a while. All right, guys, there's still 2 entries left in this tier, but I'm going to try and avoid taking an entire calendar month to give you these videos, so I'm just going to call it here and hit them first thing in the next part, okay? The editing on these obviously does make them take longer to put out, so I'm genuinely curious, how many of you actually watch these as opposed to just listening to my videos? Does the visual editing matter to you? Would you rather keep the videos how they are, or cut back a bit on the visuals to make them come out sooner? Please give me your answers down in the comments. I'm begging, I'm pleading, I want to know. If you liked the video, like the video. If not, why are you here? Did you actually hate watch 4 hours of content? Because if that's the case, it, dude. Hit dislike. Call me a goober in the comments. You earned it, bro. Hopefully part 5 won't take a biblical amount of time to get to you like this one did. So look out for that soon. Stay tuned. Maybe subscribe and turn on notifications. Why don't you? You know, you don't want to miss out on any more CIA hijinks, do you? I've been told by some people that YouTube doesn't even notify them when my videos come out, even if they've hit the notification bell. So consider subscribing to the Patreon. You'll never miss a post on there. And if you're in one of the higher tiers, you even get all of my videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. You know, that's neat. That's pretty neat, huh? Is that a draw? And you even get a shout out in my videos, like these fine fellows, my god tier patrons. Gresham, Al the Pal, Nadian Syrup, Shalom L, Thang Thang, Calcifer, Just a Koala, Zorro Q, Oh My God, Ambadicum, Forrest G, Riley G, Rena J, Gumaho, Maxman Beta, and Dylan W. And like these fine, fiscally fit philanthropists who give me $20 a month. That is 2 $10 bills. That isn't that just peachy? Samantha H, Adam K, Vladimir S, Orlando G, Jonathan, Harabutica, Jeremy, Eduardo H, Trapper 5446, Girthquake, and Rare Bees. Y'all go crazy. Thank you so much. All right, guys, if tier 5 is out, here it is. Click on it. You know the drill. If not, it's one of my other videos, so click that too. Watch the content. Click all the things. Really drive up that engagement. I mean, leave 7 comments and do a backflip, okay?
Boy, fuck you, Evan. You dumb, stupid idiot. Dumb, stupid, weak, pathetic, white guilt, milquetoast piece of human garbage. You'll never make America great again.